Okay, well, thank you very much for coming together on very short notice. It should go without saying that America is and always have been a nation of immigrants. It's part of our national heritage and vital to our prosperity. Clearly, there are and should be limits on immigration, and it is the responsibility of the federal government to set those limits. We can all agree that we need comprehensive immigration reform, clear, predictable, and fair guidelines with secure borders and a pathway to citizenship for those who are undocumented. But the executive actions announced today are counterproductive. They're divisive and unnecessary. They won't make us safer, they won't bring back jobs, and they won't solve our economic challenges. In fact, these measures do just the opposite. These are spiteful and mean-spirited directives that will only instill fear in the hearts of millions of people who pay taxes, contribute to our economy and our way of life. Tearing apart honest, hard-working families is not the answer. Separating mothers from their children, children from their mothers is no solution. These measures are inconsistent with our values, and we will have no part in their implementation. If the new president wants to wage a campaign of fear against innocent families, he can count us out. We will not spend a single cent nor lift a finger to aid his efforts. In fact, the Senate will expedite the process to pass my measure, Senate Bill 54, to prevent state and local tax dollars and law enforcement resources from being used to help ICE destroy families and damage our economy. The bill would be heard in both the Judiciary and Public Safety Committees on Tuesday. We also fast-track Senate Bill 6 by Senator Ben Hueso, the Due Process for All Act, to make sure those families facing deportation have, in fact, due process and representation. Thanks to the supermajority we won in November, we have the ability to use urgency clauses to implement new laws immediately and take the actions of the new administration demand an immediate response. We'll also explore all of our legal options in collaboration with our new Attorney General, Javier Becerra, and the legislature's legal counsel. Singling out states and cities with punitive threats and withholding federal resources, as today's order on sanctuary cities does, is unconstitutional. It's not the job of our local and county and state law enforcement to turn the cogs on President Trump's deportation machine. He cannot force us, and we will not hesitate to fight him in Congress and settle the matter in court. I'll say just a few words in Spanish very quickly, then I'll turn it over to our chair of the Latino Legislative Caucus. Hoy, la administración de Donald Trump está castigando colectivamente los actos de bondad. Lo que está en juego es el bienestar de los más vulnerables, personas de la tercera edad y los niños. Y yo, en particular, defenderé sus derechos humanos y civiles para recibir servicios. Amenazar la sexta potencia económica mundial es dañar a la economía del país. Daña nuestra naturaleza como estadounidenses. Daña nuestra postura en el mundo a favor de los derechos humanos. California seguirá siendo líder a nivel nacional en la defensa de los derechos de sus constituyentes. Es alarmante a la cierta alegría con la que Trump quiere separar las madres de sus hijos y sus hijos de sus madres. El papel nuestro como oficiales electos y yo como líder del Senado es hacer todo lo posible para defender los derechos de nuestra gente, los constituyentes del Estado de California. Finally, I will say before I turn it over to Mr. Ben Hueso, here's a copy of the executive order. In this executive order, you will find in section D, and we can highlight it for you, a provision of anyone who has engaged in fraud or willful misrepresentation in connection with any official matter or application before a governmental agency. In short, this is a Chris Kobach special, because under the guise of deporting violent criminals, what this executive order does is it says that anyone who received or is in a possession of a false social security card or a green card or even a driver's license will be eligible for mass deportation. So under the guise of detaining and deporting criminal violent felons, he has loosened up the criteria to separate children from their mothers and mothers from their children. This is not America. This is not the country that I know. And this is surely not California. With that, it's an honor for me to introduce Senator Ben Hueso, the chairman of the California Latino Legislative Caucus.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. As you mentioned, I'm the current chairman of the California Legislative Latino Caucus, and we're very concerned about California's future. I'm very proud to be the author of SB 6 that seeks to create representation for people facing deportations. My father came here in 1949, and by 1952, he was a U.S. citizen. That did not stop the federal government from deporting him 3 times. Had he had representation, that probably wouldn't have happened to him. And did it change his behavior? Yes, but did it change it for the better? I argue that no. Nobody should be live in a community in constant fear of their government, in being targeted for retaliation because of what they believe in, who they are, or the color of their skin. When we're looking at this administration targeting very important social programs that serve as a safety net for the most vulnerable, where he's seeking to cut those programs and exchange using that money to build a wall along the border, that will detain nobody. Walls are a medieval policy that no longer works today. I have interviewed with immigration officers along the border, and they say that the wall that is currently there, this state-of-the-art wall that has cost our country billions and billions of dollars, stops no one. It delays them a few seconds only, but if they want to cross, they can cross it easily. But immigration, illegal immigration is down. We're basically wasting money on a problem that no longer exists. There is no net increase in people coming into our country anymore. What we need is to focus on immigration reform. That is wise public policy, not spending billions and billions and billions of dollars on a wall that will do nothing other than erode a very important relationship with an ally. These allies are going to seek other allies internationally to pool their influence, to block exports from the U.S. This is going to hurt our economy. There is no need to target people that have differences than those that the president possesses. This is a very sad day to see this presidential administration move forward with these policies, because a lot of the people that voted for him saying that's just campaign talk. He's not going to actually move forward with these policies and programs. And look, here we are today contemplating them in our future.
Thank you very much, Senator Ben Hueso. Next, we have the chairwoman of the Judiciary Committee of the Senate, that is Senator Hannibal Jackson.
Good afternoon. In his first week of office, President Trump has taken action against women, immigrants, and our most vulnerable. Now, Mr. Trump, if you did not hear the voices of 3 million women and men protesting on the streets of California in a spontaneous act to make clear to you what the values of this state and nation are, we are here to tell you today, with our inside voices, that those actions are not okay. And as the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, the policy committee with expertise regarding the United States Constitution, states' rights and civil rights, and a strong advocate for women's rights, I stand here with my colleagues to declare that we will do everything within our power and the power of the law to ensure that all Californians have their constitutional rights protected. These executive orders threaten our public safety and the constitutional rights of all of us. Building a wall is a fiscally irresponsible use of public funds. The new president must respect the 10th Amendment. He cannot force states and cities to participate in his plan to deport undocumented immigrants. Indeed, the 10th Amendment prevents the federal government from commandeering state and local governments by requiring them to enforce federal mandates. And as a former prosecutor, I also know that when people are afraid to come forward to report crimes because they fear the government, the very people who are supposed to protect them, the public safety of all of us is compromised. We will not use taxpayer funds to persecute Californians based upon their immigration status or religious beliefs. When Governor Brown said yesterday that we support your infrastructure efforts, we meant building bridges, not walls. Here in California, we will use taxpayer funds to ensure that the due process rights of Californians are respected and upheld. And this Tuesday, as a quick and swift response to President Trump's anti-immigration actions, my committee this coming Tuesday will hear two bills that were mentioned that are a direct response to his threats against California's immigrants and our religious freedoms. SB 31 by my colleague Senator Lara and SB 6 by my colleague Senator Hueso. Make no mistake about this. The California Senate will not sit idly by and watch California's families be torn apart, our public safety threatened, or our rights taken away. We will not be complacent. We will defend California. Mr. Trump, get off your Twitter account and pay attention to the people of this state and this nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Jackson. Can you also hear Senate Bill 54 on Tuesday, too?
Absolutely.
Okay, I just want to make sure I ask permission to the chairwoman. Next, we have the chairwoman of the Public Safety Committee, that is State Senator Nancy Skinner.
Thank you. Like my colleague, Senator Jackson, as chair of Judish, as chair of the Public Safety Committee, we will be holding a hearing next Tuesday on the bills mentioned. I think only one is before us, to expedite and to demonstrate how clear the state Senate is in our commitment to defend every Californian and to respect the rights of every Californian. We know, as my colleagues have already mentioned, that the economy of the U.S. and the economy of California is dependent on immigrants, not just in the past, but currently. And I wonder, given that the current occupant in the White House has such commitments to keeping our economy strong, how he expects to do so if he takes this type of attack. I would also remind him that people who live in glass houses should not throw stones. It is not clear yet what, just in the same way that the occupant of the White House has not released his tax returns, the First Lady has not released her immigration records. All she has released is a letter from a lawyer who said that that lawyer has reviewed them and they look fine. We don't really know whether the First Lady complied with all of the U.S. immigration rules. And so are we expecting selective enforcement? Will only certain people come under the threat of this executive order, or will everyone? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Skinner. Now we have, very quickly, we'll have just a few more members. We have the senator who, along with Senator Benueso, who has part of San Diego and close proximity to the border with our neighbor, Baja California. That is Senator Tony Atkins.
Well, thank you. I am thrilled to be here with, well, I'm not thrilled to be here, but I am here with my colleagues from both the Assembly and the Senate today to make comments about this. And as a representative, along with Assemblymember Gonzalez-Fletcher and Senator Hueso, we represent an incredible border region. When the president talks about building a wall on the border, we have spent the last 2 decades building entryways, land port of entryways between San Diego and California and Tijuana, the Baja region of Tijuana. We are one region of 6 million people. And there is an economic impact, there's an economic relationship. Our metropolitan planning area, we have representation. This has taken decades for us to really build that relationship in a meaningful way. And we have done that with the Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Corporation. We are honored to represent the border region. And it isn't just about the economy, as the Pro Tem said, it is about our families, our friends. All of us have family or friends or people that we know who have had to deal with issues of families being separated. So this is really important. This is not just a soundbite. This is not campaign rhetoric. These are our lives. These are our jobs. These are our friends, our families. This is the economic stability of California. And when we spend billions of dollars to make that flow of trade and traffic back and forth between Mexico and the Tijuana, Baja region and California, we take that seriously. And so, you know, it is unfortunate we have to be here, but I am really proud of my colleagues, of my state, and the work that we're going to continue to do to represent this state and the people who live here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Atkins. From San Francisco, one of the newest members to the California State Senate, former County Board Supervisor of the City and County of San Francisco, that is Senator Scott Wiener.
Thank you, Senator De Leon. I'm here today because this, frankly, piece of garbage that came out of the White House today as part of the steady stream of hatred that's been coming from our own White House since Friday is just beyond the pale. I have the honor of representing San Francisco, which is one of the very first sanctuary cities in the country. I also represent Daly City, which has the largest Filipino community outside of the Philippines, a country that Donald Trump, you may recall, referred to as a country of terrorists. Let me tell you about Sanctuary City, because we know that there are certain people and news outlets that like to completely caricature and mischaracterize what a sanctuary city is. Our sanctuary city status in San Francisco started in the 1980s to protect Central American refugees who were fleeing war in their home countries. Over time, our sanctuary city status has allowed our immigrant communities in San Francisco to flourish. It has allowed people to support their families. It has allowed people to be active members of their community without fear of sweeps or of being deported. It has allowed people to contact the police and not be fearful that when the police arrive, the victim of a crime is going to be detained and deported. We're proud in San Francisco of our sanctuary city status, and we are going to fight like crazy to protect it. We're going to stand, not just in San Francisco, but in California. We're going to stand with our immigrant communities. Our message is we have your backs. You are part of our family. Tengo un mensaje para nuestros vecinos inmigrantes. Ustedes son una parte de California. Ustedes son una parte de nuestra familia. Vamos a protegerlos. Vamos a proteger sus familias. y vamos a estar con ustedes hasta el fin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Scott Wiener. I didn't know you spoke Spanish. You know, it's the first time. I didn't know. Now you have someone else interview beside me, and Senator Hueso here. You know, last speaker we have is our good friend and colleague from the Green Carpet, the Assembly. She's the vice chair of the California Latino Legislative Caucus. That's no other than Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez.
So thank you, and thank you to the leadership of our Senate Pro Tem. I just want to kind of bring it back to the point that he read to you, and this assumption that Donald Trump, because he says that what he wants to deport are these violent felons, what actually happens. Last year, for a post-conviction relief bill that we got passed and is in the process of being implemented in California now, we brought up a woman from our district on the border, Sylvia Ocampo, and she testified to her story and how she got put on the ICE list. She had a driver's license way back in the day when she could originally have a driver's license. And when the DMV continued to send her a renewal, she simply signed the form saying she was eligible for renewal even after she wasn't. She signed that form because she had to get to work. And she had 4 US-born children who had to get to school, one of whom had special needs. She eventually got caught because she wasn't supposed to have that license, and of course gave it back and served 30 days in jail as a guilty plea. She didn't realize with that guilty plea that she put herself in a position that now, under this executive order, we are treating her like a murderer and a rapist. 4 children, US born. She's worked in this country for 20 years, paying taxes, doing the right thing, and now, under this executive order, we're telling her that's not good enough. You're a murderer and a rapist. That's not right. It's un-American. We also have the opportunity, both Senator Hueso and I, to represent a community called City Heights. It's one of the largest refugee communities in all of California and all of the world, quite frankly. And under this executive order, we also know that there are families. There are families who've been awaiting other family members who have passed security tests, who are on their way here, who are now being told they will not be allowed to come simply because they're from a Muslim country, because they're from Somalia. These are contributing members of our society, people who have worked hard, kept themselves out of trouble, continue to pay taxes, and this is how we are going to treat them now. I am so grateful to the Senate package that we're going to expedite it, ensure. I know that the Assembly members in the Latino Caucus are excited to see it on our side so that we can ensure that all of these individuals will have the proper representation, and we'll continue to fight with them, we'll continue to fight for them, we'll continue to fight this administration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez, for your very passionate remarks. We'll open up to Q&A. If you have any questions of myself or any questions from the members here today, please ask away.
Yeah, Senator, do you have plans to have California declare itself a sanctuary state?
Well, let me take a step backwards, because just like Senator Scott Wiener just mentioned a few moments ago, it's a very nebulous definition. If you know what the definition is of a sanctuary city, please inform us, because it originates obviously during the Civil War struggles in Central America. There is no such thing as a sanctuary city where there's this invisible force shield. And if you reach it and you touch base as if you're playing tag, you're safe. It doesn't exist, irrespective of San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, or elsewhere. But it doesn't mean that the state of California and the tax dollars of California have to collaborate and cooperate with the federal immigration agents and authorities in splitting children from their mothers and mothers from their children. We got the bills that we're going to move forward in anticipation of mass deportations, of splitting families apart. You know what those bills are, and that's what we're going to do.
What about the federal grants that might be attempted to be cut?
Well, with regards to the federal grants that may be withheld, that would take an act of Congress. So that's statutory decision. That is not an executive decision. It may be stated in the executive order, but that will require a statutory change. That is the Congress of the United States. We will work forcefully in the Congress to make sure that doesn't happen. And if not, we'll go and we'll be perhaps in a court of law. We don't know that yet. We're going to take it step by step. But let me be very clear about something. When you politically threaten and attempt to blackmail a state like California by withholding dollars, precious dollars that are needed, dollars that in fact that we send to Washington, D.C. because we get 78 cents on the dollar. Therefore, we're a donor state to many other red states, that when we send those dollars, we expect them to come back to the benefit of the people of California, irrespective if you're a Democrat or Republican, irrespective if you are a Clinton supporter or a Trump supporter. And those dollars are necessary because those dollars are the dollars that we need for senior citizens who have the early signs of dementia or Alzheimer's. Those dollars are needed for children who are on the spectrum, who have Asperger's or autism. Those dollars are needed for transportation, infrastructure. So when you attempt to hurt the state of California, you're just hurting the rest of America because we're 13% of the overall GDP of the United States. Listen, he wasn't elected king, and this is not a monarchy. This is the United States of America. This is a republic with direct representation. Next one.
Is California prepared to lose potentially millions in those federal dollars that fund everything from, local law enforcement training, officers, staffing, drug treatment programs?
Well,
Also,
okay.
could you explain, please, give me some details about the role that Attorney General Lucero will have and how that also funds?
Let me go back a little bit, and I'm not going to sort of regurgitate what I said with Ben just a few moments ago, but he is not the king. This is not a monarchy. This is a republic. This is where we engage with each other. This is when we negotiate. But again, to withhold funds, and you just mentioned the issue of drug rehabilitation and folks who are perhaps addicted to drugs or alcoholic and they need necessary dollars, that you would have someone who occupies the most powerful position on planet Earth actually withhold those dollars because he's not getting exactly what he wants. And as our chair, the fine and very able lawyer on the issue of the constitutionality of this issue, we think it's unconstitutional that he would attempt to coerce us, to force us to capitulate to his will, and if we don't do so, that he'll withhold these dollars. Again, you have to report the human impact of such an attempt. Actually hurting folks who are in drug rehab, hurting children who have Asperger's or autism, hurting senior citizens who have the early signs of dementia and Alzheimer's. That's the kind of precedent we have in the United States of America with these veiled threats that he's making, that he actually articulates in an executive order. That's not America.
What role do you see the Attorney General having, and how will that differ?
I placed a phone call. I placed a phone call today to the Attorney General. We're playing a little phone tag, and then we're going to get together very soon, and we're going to discuss the potential legal remedies. But I won't speak on behalf of the AG. The AG will speak on his behalf.
How far is the state of California willing to go? Because going to court is expensive. How far is the state willing to go, and how much are we willing to spend?
Well, that's a very good question. We don't know. It's my hope that we use our legal counsel that we have retained, the former Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder. The less we use him, the better for us. The more we're using him, that means bad things are happening to California families. So whatever it takes, that's just the bottom line, because our constitutional responsibility as elected officials of the people of California is to do everything within our power to protect our values, our progress, our measures, as well as the people of California, first and foremost. So we'll do whatever it takes. We don't know yet. That's a good question because that's more of a legal technical question, and it all depends on if in fact the Congress does move forward with the statutory change to withhold the federal dollars that are our federal dollars. So we make it very clear this is not federal dollars as that they're giving us a gift or a grant. These are our dollars that belong to Californians that we send to Washington, D.C. And in fact, we have other states, red states, who we're subsidizing as well. I find that the great irony, but we're doing what we need to do to protect California. We'll take a couple more questions and then we will move on, or? Here's and then I'll come here and here.
Question for Senator Buesa. You said you wanted to call for a focus on immigration reform. What does that mean to you?
I think it's long overdue that we need immigration reform in our country. Circumstances change, laws change. The way we apply the current rules really do not provide a pathway for people to come into our country. I argue that we have a broken system currently, a broken system that's contributing to disjoining families, to hurting families in our state. It's not addressing a path to citizenship to people that want to have a path to citizenship, that have been constructive members of our community. That is no secret. That has been debated in Washington for the last 6 years, I think, last 8 years. They've had immigration reform plans that were not even presented for a vote. Now, how transparent is that? That Washington and the Speaker of the House prevented a vote on immigration reform in Washington. Why? We want to know that. Why hasn't the media been more forceful in requiring them to put forward a bill that they have within their proposals? Why don't they allow that bill to see the light of day? Why isn't that debate held in a forum in front of the community where people vote their positions? I'd like to know where Congress stands on that bill that's sitting in somebody's desk currently. So I'd like to see Congress act on that bill that was introduced 4 years ago that hasn't had a vote.
Senator, just two quick questions. What's your response, if you have any, to sort of the resurgence of the phrase law and order in talking about these executive orders, and then just to give you context how it was used in the 60s, and then also maybe a little off topic, but talk of voter fraud on a mass scale seems to be aimed in California.
Yeah. Let me take the first question. Let me try to be as succinct as possible. I think it is a masterful, classic play on his part to throw the ball in this direction to the Russian influence on the electoral process of the United States, albatross around his neck, and have folks, follow, again, alternative facts. We know, everyone knows, even they know, that's not truthful. It's a falsehood. But that being said, the very fact that he's done this actually divides America. He's making the beautiful America ugly America. He's making great America horrific America. And he knows exactly what he's doing by, throwing the ball in that direction and have everyone chase it over there. And that's the news of the day. And it preoccupies everyone's mind, the falsehood of allegedly these immigrants who voted, quote unquote, illegally, which we know is inaccurate. But then it takes off the pressure with regards to potential Russian involvement in the electoral process of the United States of America. So that's my thoughts right there. And the second one.
What about the phrase law and order?
Listen, we're all about law and order here. Everyone's about law and order here. We're about, punishing criminals when they have to be punished in a measured fashion to make sure it's about public safety in our communities. None of these measures will actually, bring about law and order. They'll only bring about mayhem. If, in fact, you have police officers, local police officers, leaving their beat and going on to help stake out an elementary school where a mother's about to pick up her child, then you have crime being committed in this neighborhood, you put public safety in danger. Every single person, whether you live in a suburb, an urban area, or rural area. Now, that being said, if you're an immigrant, and it was articulated here very nicely by several of the members, if you are a witness to a crime, or worse, you are a victim of a crime, you hesitate and pick up that phone and calling your local police department. Local police departments have spent so many years trying to bridge that gap and create trust. This will be torn apart completely by one individual. We'll take one last question and then, one more, okay. And then there's folks up here too, if you.
Or for anyone really, assuming the federal government concedes your point about using state and local resources for deportations or immigration enforcement, they're still calling on the addition of 10,000 more immigration officers. What is your response to them putting more federal boots on the ground to enforce?
Well, I mean, that's his prerogative. But as Senator, I believe Ben Weso had just mentioned a few moments ago, the flows of immigration, whether they're legal or illegal, to the United States have decreased quite dramatically. In fact, I think they have empirical evidence that clearly suggests that the numbers perhaps are right now are at an all-time low. So if they're at an all-time low, why would you increase it by 10,000? Unless what you're attempting to do is to further divide America and again, pit one group against another. Let me just say one last thing on this issue. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you have to have the moral leadership to speak at a higher ground, to move policies that really lift people up economically. Not just one group, but all groups, Republican or Democrat. When a very skilled, manipulative individual like him comes into the arena and sniffs economic anxiety, economic panic, economic insecurity, and then takes it a step further by pitting one group against another group and demonizes other individuals because he can sense the economic insecurity, the panic, the anxiety, which is real because there's so many forces, whether it's globalization, automation, and other factors. When you pit one group against another and you demonize and you scapegoat and you divide and tear apart the fabric of who we are as Americans, that's not healthy. When you have children who are crying and physically sick because of who the President of the United States of America is, that's unhealthy. I don't recall any child of a Republican who I know who, when Barack Obama became President of the United States, was physically sick and ill and cried. I don't recall any child of a Democrat who, when George W. Bush got elected to become President of the United States, was physically ill and sick. And we're talking about elementary school age children who are fearful of what may happen to their families. And we're talking about US citizen children too. So this is unhealthy for this nation. This is unlike anything we've ever seen before. And last question, and then, unless the members want to answer questions, I got to get to my committee hearing.
Several of you talked about the wall. I'm wondering if there's anything the state can do to impede that, if you have any plans.
Do you want to talk to this one? Yeah. You know, well, listen, you know, to impose such a physical, you know, monstrosity that separates, you know, our business partner, Mexico, and as Tony Atkins and Ben Hueso and Lorena Gonzalez can testify better than anyone else here, we move goods, commerce, culture, people, gastronomy. It's a shared area. It's where I grew up. I grew up there. I grew up on both sides. And I can tell you that, you know, if there's severe environmental impacts as well on our border, we're going to seriously look into it. But if they actually, you know, are successful in building, you know, wall, you're probably going to have a new generation of Olympic pole vaulters, you know, come about, you know, and they'll probably be quite successful. So with that, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.